live. Oh, there we are. Hi, everyone. I am flying in here with my hair on fire, like for reals. So, if you've been on these daily tune-ins, I've had some stuff going on with trying to find a place to move to. It's not the destination that we were hoping for, but we had to find a new place here in Ukraine because our place was rented. And I want to share this story with you simply because it ties into the message for today. And I have not prepared myself any at all for this message. I'm going to fly by the seat of my pants. We've been moving all day, and literally my shoulders hurt from coming up 1,000 stairs. Actually, 49 because I was I was counting them because I was so mad at having to carry these big bags. So if you don't know, we've been traveling and are in Ukraine, trying to get to the next destination, which I do believe is going to be our home destination, and quite excited about that. But there's been a lot of hurdles and challenges that we have hit along the way with getting to that next destination. Just trying to find transportation there because flying is extremely expensive with all of the bags that we have. Plus, we have a dog, and trains it's just not feasible with all of the stuff we have and the dog. So our only real transit there is by car, and we're kind of excited about that because if you've known us for any amount of time, we've always been road trippers. And the idea of road tripping through some pretty crazy countries that we never ever would guess to be at or go through, road tripping through them would be an amazing adventure and an amazing journey. And we've had 2 different trips set up, and they've both fallen through. And, so that has kept us in Ukraine longer than we wanted. So last night we were hoping to be out by the time this other place that we were staying at, we were hoping to be out of the country by then so that we wouldn't have to deal with having to find a new place in Ukraine. Last night we went to bed and we still didn't know where we were going. We didn't have a place. We found out there's some festival in town. All the Airbnbs were booked up except for ones that were crazy expensive. And last night I went to bed. My husband and I both went to bed. And this is where the message starts to unfold for today. The message is about merging timelines and looming darkness. The nighttime hours were so interesting. For many of you, I know that you're having dreams. Dreams are becoming extremely vivid, and dreams are a way of the subconscious purging much of the old stuff. And we have been hit by a lot of energies throughout the 40 days of purging that I've been talking about. So all of that is still purging from the subconscious, the part of us that holds on to everything in our past. We're also purging a lot of trauma, old lifetime trauma, ancestral trauma. So there's a lot being purged out. And when you add on to that a conscious purge or consciously maneuvering life, it all kind of hits at the same time. So last night, as I slept, I went to bed, and y'all, here's the other thing that I think many of you are maybe possibly noticing or going to be noticing in the next few weeks and months as we go. The level of trust that I have now in this process, although I have no idea how any of this journey is going to pan out. I don't at this point, the logical and strategic assembly of our own personal journey. When I say our, my husband and I on getting from one place to another, it's that's the story, but we're all in the same boat. We're all moving from where we are and shifting into a new timeline, where that timeline is our divine timeline, the divine plan that I've talked about on these daily tune-ins. So I know When I went to bed last night, I know this is what's happening. We are literally kind of on, if you can imagine the metaphor of when you're ready to get on the interstate and you're on that access road that kind of brings you up the interstates here, and you're on the access road coming up. We are on this merging access road of timelines so that we can then merge onto the highest timeline of our soul's existence. And we are catching up to where we would have been had we been on our soul's journey from day one of this lifetime. But many have gotten off, kind of gotten off the interstate and kind of going through the city, the city streets or the town streets where, you have to stop at a hurdle or a stoplight. You got to stop at the stop sign. You got to go around. You got to take a detour. And we've all taken detours from our soul timeline because we started to accept and live and be bound by the all of the narratives of the matrix. This is how it's supposed to look, and this is what you do, and we've all been navigating that road, and now coming to the idea that that is not our pathway. So we're pulling out of those old paradigms little by little. A lot for some of us, it's we're almost out. For some of you, you're just getting started. All of our timelines are very different. But what I do know is we are all making our way back to that interstate, the place that just flows with our divine plan. So when I went to bed last night, the faith that I had that something would work itself out today was there. However, my subconscious mind is still getting used to sitting back and submitting and not trying to protect me with all of the worst case scenarios. What if we didn't find a place? What if all of that ran through? And while that was working through, then my subconscious mind had some momentum. So then it started going through the other the other pieces of my life that I'm working out and worst case scenarios there. So here's a really fine line. This is where the looming darkness piece comes in, because you all are going to be working through this just as much as I am. And I want to be upfront about it, because there's a really fine line between tuning into the worst case scenario of every situation that you are working through, tuning into it to move it, to heal it, and to process it, versus the fine line, crossing over that fine line into worrying and taking it with you throughout the day. So how this worked out last night is I came down to worst case scenario is we don't find a place to move into today. And I sat with that, and I was fearful, and I allowed that fear to stay with me, and long enough for me to just be in it and go through the worst case scenario, knowing all of the different facets of it, and knowing as I worked through that fear, on the other side of it, I was like, we're going to be fine. Worst case scenario is we get a hotel. Okay, whatever, that was an easy fix. But then I went to my mind took me to the next scenario with other situations that aren't as easily solved. And I just sat in the fear and the grief of worst case scenario of this situation is. And man, some of it hurt. And this is all throughout the night. I was already up because I was wired with how is this going to unfold? The excitement of how this divine timeline is coming together is beyond me. So I'm excited to see how it unfolds. But at the same time, it's a little nerve-wracking being in the unknown of how it's going to unfold. So the mind has to catch up with all of that. It has to go through all of its process to then file back in it that, oh, no matter what, we're going to be fine. So I sat in a really painful darkness for, I don't know how many, minutes, I don't know, maybe an hour, of all of the worst case scenarios of the things that are still unresolved in my life that really matter to me. And as I worked through it, on the other end of it, I finally got to, oh, worst case scenarios, this could happen. But at the end of the day, I'm still going to be all right. But it took me through and down into that descension phase, which we've talked about a couple of times on these daily tune-ins, to then ascend into into the faith and the belief that no matter what, it's all good. It's not like, it's all good, it's going to work out. It's just like, worst case scenario happens, I will get through it. It will be difficult, but I will get through it, and I will be okay on the other end of it. So what this is all coming back to you in, we are all merging back on that inner state of our soul divine pathway. Okay. So that's you got to speed up, right? In order to get on that interstate and from that access road, you got to start speeding up to get into the lane. Cause once you hit it, it's going to go do. It's going to unfold. So 2022 holds the frequency in that, because it's a 6-year, already talked about that. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, go back a couple daily tune-ins. It's a 6-year. That's expansion. That's moving forward. That's an unconditional love. And when that starts to unfold, unconditional love hits you in 2022, what happens? Your frequency goes up. You speed up. Then another scenario or something else works itself out. You expand. Your consciousness expands. So 2022 has the ability to carry you forward pretty quickly on your divine plan, which could give you some whiplash. It could, put you in that, oh my God phase. You might not be ready, or you might be. But how you can get fully ready is to sit with the looming darkness, all the things that you're so afraid to look at because you're afraid to go down that worst case scenario. Sit with the worst case scenario, journal it out. The worst case scenario that's going to happen in this aspect of my life is ... and start free writing, start thinking about it. But you have to sit with it until it is cleared. The fine line is if you take it with you throughout your day and you sit and churn on it and worry about it, that's what brings you into that descension state and keeps you there. That is not going to get you the results that you want in 2022. That's going to keep you in a lower vibration, attracting in some of the things that could bring you the worst case scenario. So it's a really subtle thing that we're talking about here. But in order to purge those last hidden nuggets of all of the darkness, you got to be in them. The trigger for me was going to bed and not knowing where I was going to, really where I was going to move into today. We found this place. It's got some like 70s style couch in here. It's not nearly as cozy as where we were, but you know what? It's got fast freaking internet, and the last place had terrible internet. So I'm okay. And it's going to be a temporary place for us until we find our transportation to our next place. So it's all working out. All of the ways, the way in which we get back onto that divine inner state, so to speak, of our divine plan is coming together, but it's going to be coming together in ways that we could not expect or we could not have planned. And that's what I'm finding in my own life, because I couldn't have planned not knowing where I was going to wake up the next day or where I was going to move the next day. I couldn't have planned in the way that we ended up finding this place. I couldn't have planned for sitting and not in worry or anxiety last night, but sitting in all of the things that my subconscious mind was like, let's work on this. What about this? And we were like, my multidimensional self was like, okay, let's go there. It wasn't a night of anxiety. It was a night of just sitting in the worst case scenario situations, knowing that I had to work through each one to clear them out. I don't have fear around this stuff anymore. I woke up and because that fear was gone, immediately things started falling into place for us to find this place. And within a few hours, we were moved in and we're, somewhat settled. And it all is working out, but we have to let go and surrender to allow it to work out. The looming darkness is the very necessary pieces that you gotta go to. It's the necessary pieces that you just gotta sit in. And I know that they can be really scary, and sometimes we don't want to look at it. But as long as you are brave and bold enough to say, okay, worst case scenario is what? If you've got something going on in your physical world, worst case scenario is death. So sit with the idea of death, right? You don't have to sit there forever, but you just sit there and stare at it until it moves through every portion of your body, because there's that fine line. Like, it's so subtle, you all, but this is where the mastery of who you are comes into play. When you can sit there and let the idea of death go completely through you and surrender to the fact that you may die. Any one of us could. And then once it's passed through, your body's like, okay, we're ready, we're ready for that. But now you've already cleared that possibility. If you don't go to the worst case scenario, it follows you around, right? If you don't want to look at it, it doesn't mean it's still not there. It's still going to follow you, and it'll follow you up that access route. It'll follow you onto that interstate, and it's going to weigh you down, and you're not going to be able to go as fast. If you're in a relationship or a partnership that you're afraid to look at it because you kind of know, but you're afraid to know, sit with it and be like, worst case scenario, what if I finally walk away from this relationship? What is going to happen? And you sit with all of the possibilities until it doesn't have a grip on you. Once that happens, it doesn't mean that you're going to choose that. It just means that if you do, you know you will be fine. And that then purges away, and you don't take that on with you. So when you get on that divine plan and you start making choices for yourself from that released and surrendered state, those worst case scenario possibilities, because they're so dense and because you are in a higher frequency, they start to fall away. But you can't take them with you unless you sit with them. So I'm kind of beating a dead horse here, but I want you to hear this, because there is that subtlety of, being so afraid you don't want to look at it and ignoring it, versus taking a look at it and allowing it to pass through you, all of the feelings of it, letting it go, and then taking the next step, knowing that no matter what happens, worst case scenario, you will be okay. You might have to work through some crap. You might have to deal with some crap. But once that's cleared, then you rise up. And once you rise up, the chances of that worst case scenario falls away, and all of the new possibilities of higher frequencies of outcomes start to then become more viable options and opportunities and possibilities to manifest. Okay. Hey, Trish, sounds like surrender. Yeah, surrender and faith is it. But how does it look like? I got firsthand experience last night sitting in all of it. It was hours, 3 hours of just, okay, now let's take a look. Worst case scenario in that? Oh God, I don't really want to even go there, but I'm going to go there. Worst case scenario, I put myself in it. And I imagined worst case scenario with my kids. What does this look like? Oh, it hurt, it stung. And then I remembered that it hasn't happened. It's not the reality. I could let it go, but because I chose to go there, it cleared. Carly, you're describing what I have been going through. Thank you so much. Yeah, we're all going through it. This is the purge, right? We purge energetically, but now these things in our lives, I was saying yesterday, in our physical lives, this is when we are going to be purging them in the reality. We're going to see it. We're going to feel these purges now. We are going to have to take action on all the energy that was purged from us, those densities in that 40-day purging process. This is when it's coming into our physical reality. This is when it gets real, right? So we're all going through this, Carly. So thanks for mentioning that. That's why I wanted to come on here. I look a wreck, like I feel a wreck. But I had to get on here. I wanted to share this because this kept looming in my mind. I was like, this looming darkness. Oh gosh, here's this looming darkness. Let's go there. And the faster we sit with it, the faster and more courageous we are, the faster we purge it, and the faster we get on those divine timelines. And I kept affirming for myself, I'm aligning with my highest timeline now. I'm aligning with my highest timeline now. And I got to the point where I believed it and I had faith in that. I had cleared all the crap. And when I woke up, I was like, I'm in my highest timeline now. And just like that, a place was available for us to be in that was not available hours before. Yesterday, this place wasn't available. but we found it. We came across it. It's not the ideal place, but it's a roof over our head. Worst case scenario last night that I had to sit in. What if we can't find something because nothing logically looked available? And what if we have no place to go? I got to the point where I knew I'd be okay. And look at this. I'm okay. Okay. So this is how this is going to work. This is how it's going to unfold. Jessica, yesterday's energies hit me so hard. I'm curious. I have two young nonverbal boys with autism who I believe were experiencing them too. Yes. Both cried for 20 minutes while I was feeling similar. Yeah. Yeah. And there's been, I think there was like been like 10 solar flares in the last couple of days. It was just like bam, 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 bam. So we are getting hit with some massive. I haven't even looked at the Schumann all day today because I've been in activity and in action. But yes, Jessica, there I have no doubts. And from what I do know, because especially with autistic children and people, adults, they're highly, highly sensitive. So they are much more sensitive in my belief. They are much more sensitive to these energies than even we are because we have these we've built up the capabilities to kind of like keep things out, but because they are so highly sensitive, they're feeling it probably even more intensely. So that makes sense. And yeah, so we are all kind of we're being jolted energetically right now. So especially with all of these solar flares, and I don't know if there's any coronal mass ejections, but typically solar flares do create those. So I'm not up to speed on that stuff, but it makes sense. So yeah, this is where we have to just be patient with ourselves and the family members around us and allow everyone to move through their junk because everyone's facing the looming darkness and they're facing the purging in the physical reality. So just be patient with yourself. Thanks for being here, you all. Wasn't sure if I was going to be here in time, so I didn't put anything up. So the fact that you're here and you just kind of, flowed with me and got on here, I really do appreciate it. So thank you. I'll be back. I'll be back tomorrow with some good internet. I'm super grateful for that because I'm not all glitchy on here. So it means that I'm coming through, I'm streaming through, and I'm pretty excited about that. So thanks for being here. Have a wonderful, wonderful night. And I'll see you on the last day of 2021 tomorrow. And I don't know, I'll plan something for that, but we'll have a good time tomorrow. Okay. Mwah. Have a good one, bye, everyone. I was going to say, have a good one, everyone, and bye. And I said, have a good bye.